To the US now, where America is investing big on Africa's future. This week, 49 African leaders travelled to Washington for talks with President Biden. The US leader has confirmed his country will invest billions of dollars in the continent to counter China's growing influence. But is it too little, too late? We're now joined by our very own Michelle Fleury from New York. Michelle, that's the big question here. Is the US too late to the party?
Look, I think it's fascinating. If you read through the text of Biden's speech, one word doesn't come up, and that is China. And yet, talking to diplomats, talking to people following this, they will say that this is America's attempt in many ways to try and counter the influence of countries like China and like Russia in the region. They know that America has to try and play catch up, whether it is in diplomacy, whether it is in alliances, whether it is in investments. And I think that is the goal of this summit, worth pointing out, the first in 8 years, and a commitment of $55 billion. Whether that will be enough, I think will be proven over time. But right now, this is sort of a first step, if you like, by the Biden administration to show America's commitment to the continent.
And Michelle, in terms of what sort of products here the US is looking to get out of these deals, there's been heavy investment, especially from the Chinese and the Russians previously, in rare earth metals and in products such as lithium and graphite, which is used for electric vehicles. Is the US looking for similar sorts of products out of Africa?
Well, I think this is, if you like, a first step. And so reading through the kind of announcements that we've seen so far, there was a lot of talk about investments related to climate adaptation, investments relating to sort of things of that nature, infrastructure, rather than specific trade deals and key minerals, as you mentioned, rare earths, which are crucial in so many of today's electronics, and which has been a real competitive battleground. I think what you're seeing here from the US is they're trying to portray themselves as sort of a better ally than perhaps some other options that the African continent has. Again, whether this effort will bear fruit, I think, will depend on sort of America's ability to show its commitment in the long term. And that, I think, is something people are waiting for. But in the meantime, it's showing it through sort of putting money on the table. Whether or not that translates on the ground, whether or not people recognize that, I think that will be a key part of its success.
Michelle, thank you very much for that update.